Hello, everyone. My name is John Linker, Program Consultant at Encore Tours, and I'd like to welcome you to the latest installment of our Encore Live series, Five Things I Love About Spain. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to spend the next half hour or so discovering some of the many wonderful things Spain has to offer. Personally, when I think of Spain, the first word that comes to my mind is passion. Spaniards are passionate about food, family, culture, music, and just life in general. I think you could hear it and feel it in the music that was playing as you joined the webinar today. It's one of the things that I think makes Spain such a great touring destination for music ensembles. And it's also why groups touring Spain tend to find some of the largest and most enthusiastic audiences in Europe. I want to share some comments from Diane Lynn of the Community Chorus of Detroit about her group's 2019 trip to Spain. We have so many extraordinary memories of Spain. The flamenco lunch performance in a cave, great concerts, cathedrals that rivaled even the most beautiful in Italy, a wine tasting, and fabulous cities, Diane said. Speaking of their final concert at a packed church in Madrid, she recalled, "At the last sound, the entire audience rose spontaneously to applaud and call out to us. What a thrill." Ed signaled us for an encore and we sang a favorite African-American spiritual. The audience members again rose to their feet and actually cheered this time. Afterwards, high as kites from a great performance, we walked to a nearby restaurant for our gala farewell dinner with many toasts, testimonials, and hugs, and endless platters of great food. It had been a tour that sated our appetites for food, music, and adventure, and it had filled our hearts too to overflowing. Spain is certainly a magical place, so we'd like to take you there right now. To serve as our guide today, we are delighted to have joining us live from his home in Barcelona, a passionate Spaniard in his own right, and one of our very own star tour managers, Javier Parrilla Guix.
Hello, John. How are you doing?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for being here today and take it away.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be with you today. I'm going to share my screen now and we're going to start the presentation, but really, really nice music to begin with that gives us an atmosphere of what makes Spain so special. So I'm going to share. There we go. And it's a pleasure for me, as I say, here from Barcelona. It's just right after dinner time. It's in 10 p.m. So we used to have dinner quite late. But I have here 5 things I love about Spain to share with you. And for that, we're going to focus on 3 of its main cities: Barcelona, Madrid, and Seville. So we're going to start with a map that shows us that Spain, the reason why Spain is what I would define a crossroad of cultures, because of its really interesting location in Europe, but just next to Africa, as you can see here. Spain is located in the Iberian Peninsula, and it's not just between the rest of Europe and Africa, but you can tell it's as well located between the Mediterranean Sea, which has historically been a cradle of really important old cultures, and the Atlantic Ocean that became so important around 1492 when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. And that explains why Spain has such an interesting history. The territory of Spain nowadays has been crossed by different civilizations. For example, the Romans coming from Rome, but not just them. We had Germanic tribes, we had the Phoenicians, and we had as well the Arabs who conquered Spain and stayed in the area for some 700 years. And that has left traces behind in our music, like flamenco, we're gonna talk about today, in our architecture and our art, and in this incredible cultural heritage that we can see in Spain, and that gives us this passion and this character, John, you were just mentioning. So without further ado, we're gonna start this presentation, and we're gonna do it the way we like to do it at Encore. We're gonna do it just going on tour to 3 of these main cities, Barcelona, Madrid, and Seville. On this map, you can see the names of other really incredible cities that you could see in Spain, but probably Barcelona, Madrid, and Seville are 3 great places where we can see how diverse the country is. And we're going to start with the city of Barcelona, where I was lucky to be born. And if there's something I should say about Barcelona, for those who haven't been yet in this very, very seductive city, is that it is a city with 2,000 years of history, and it is a Mediterranean city too. And that is one of the things that explains why Barcelona has two really interesting things to offer to us. First, it's medieval churches. They are not just specific of Barcelona. Everywhere you go in Spain, or almost everywhere, you will find lots of medieval churches, which are 7 centuries old, 8 centuries old, 5 centuries old. But in Barcelona, we have some special ones we will talk about. And then we have as well something which is unique of Barcelona, the capital of a region called Catalonia with a strong identity, which is Gaudi's architecture and an incredible collection of Art Nouveau buildings. This is an overview of the city. Barcelona is a city with 1.6 million people. And in the old days, we used to be enclosed by walls. We're going to see them in a second, but you can tell right now, it's very compact, very manageable. So for groups, it's really, really interesting because in 30 minutes on a bus, you could get everywhere in the city, but you could actually spend weeks diving into the heritage of this capital. You can see here we can see in the center of the picture the Basilica of Sagrada Familia. We will finish it someday. Yeah, I will tell you in a second. But we can see as well that Barcelona is this harbor city that used to be especially very important in the Middle Ages, some 700, 600 years ago. And this explains why when we go to the heart of the city, which we call the Gothic Quarter, we find ourselves in a labyrinth of old streets that are really, really interesting. Here in the center, you see the Cathedral of Barcelona, and this is how it looks, how its facade looks like. It is a neo-Gothic facade for a Gothic church that has been built along 700 years. But this picture is important too, because we can see on the right side some of the remains of the walls of the city. Where you see the trees on the right side, those stones were put by Romans around the 3rd century after Christ. And then in medieval times, we expanded, in the 13th century, we expanded the walls, we made them higher, and then we renewed them. You can tell there's a modern construction. So this is what happens when you go to this center, to this heart of the city. And once there, it feels sometimes as if you were traveling back in time to the Middle Ages. If some of you are familiar with A Game of Thrones, you might recognize a bit the atmosphere. This is how it feels, actually, walking just behind the cathedral. I had a good friend, taking the video for me. And what I love about these streets is that even though I was born here 33 years ago, every time I come here, I can understand what is to me the essence of many, many Spanish cities. Because walking through these alleys, you can just feel that these cities are like a song or like a tale that has been sung for many different centuries. On the left, we can see the buttress arches of the Cathedral of Barcelona. Beautiful buildings, these medieval churches. And then you can just see that history comes to life every day in the city. We have the old, but we have the present as well. And that's what is part of our identity as well. You will see, we see graffiti, we see cafes, modern cafes, we see paintings, and then we see this incredible heritage of architecture that history has left us. This is the old town of Spain, of Barcelona, and it is one of the golden ages. The Middle Ages were one of the golden ages of this city. One of the venues that we like to use in Barcelona, we like to go to, is another Gothic church from the 14th century, where it's a great place for choirs. And this is how it looks inside. It's called Saint Mary of the Pine Tree, Santa Maria del Pi, Saint Mary of the Pine Tree, a Gothic church with such a high ceiling, and the vaulted ceiling it's very nice because it gives the voices, the sound, a long reverberation. The really nice intimate atmosphere and this reverberation makes this place very nice, very historic. And when you see the audience there, it's funny because for them it is a place that they go to service to every Sunday. Spain is mainly a Catholic country for those who still believe in God. We don't have as many confessions as in other countries, but they are just happy to see people singing there, because this church as well is a place where flamenco sessions and Spanish guitar music concerts take place because of its acoustics. It's one of the nice venues we like to use that connects us with the medieval past. History continued in Barcelona, and we had a second golden age, and we need to keep advancing until the 19th, until the turn of the century, 19th till 20th century. There we have another picture of Santa Maria del Pi. And in the 19th and 20th, beginning of the 20th century, because of Industrial Revolution and because Barcelona is a very cosmopolitan city, some authors have referred to it as the less Spanish city of Spain because of its strong Catalan identity and because of its proximity to France. Only 90 minutes by car we get to the French border. We started to get the influence of French Art Nouveau, and we decided to do it our own way. This is the outside of one of our most beloved concert halls in the city. And if you think the outside looks nice and somehow a bit modern with this glass facade, once you come inside, you are just mesmerized by the incredible beauty of this building. This is the Palace of the Catalan Music, finished in 1908, a place where choirs and orchestras and bands regularly sing. And here you can see some of the features, some of the characteristics of this Art Nouveau architecture, like the stained glass you will see everywhere, beautiful tiles, wavy shapes. You will see it here better. It's the same. Can you see these shapes that remind us of nature, so that we feel maybe that we are inside a dream? We had different architects who would work in this style, but the most important that we're going to talk about was a man who was, we don't know if he was crazy, but he was definitely a genius, and his name was Gaudí. We're going to see some of his pieces right now.
Just to jump in for a second, Javier, I have to say that when I visited Barcelona, one of the things that just blew me away the most was the architecture of Gaudí and the different buildings and structures that he has throughout the city. I'm not even really sure how to describe it for folks that haven't been there. Pictures are one thing, but seeing it in person is something else. They're almost surreal and lifelike. They feel like they're alive. Just incredible. So I highly recommend checking them out because they're amazing.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's hard to describe, and sometimes, John, I say that Gaudí's architecture. This is an example. Just one. Can you see how this wave just continues the other way around in this picture of Parkway, one of Gaudí's sites? All these sites are World Heritage of the UNESCO. Sometimes Gaudí's architecture goes beyond words. When we see Art Nouveau, it takes us into a dreamy atmosphere, but with Gaudí, it's even different because he was an architect that thought of God as the most important architect on earth. So he inspired himself in nature, not just to evade reality, but to take us into sometimes like a spiritual path here. For example, the steps represent of the entrance of a garden city, that is Parkway, represent a spiritual path that takes us to heaven on earth. It is just incredible to visit these sites, and this is something that everyone should do at least once in a lifetime. He had many examples of his architecture, Gaudí. They are almost all of them in Barcelona and around Barcelona. This is Parkway. This is a mansion, Casa Batlló. Maybe you saw it as well. It's World Heritage of the UNESCO too. This was a mansion of a rich industrial family who wanted everyone to see their wealth, like the great Gatsby of the old days. And you can see these wavy shapes again, these shapes that remind us maybe of the sea. The carving of the wood is just incredible. And for sure, talking about Gaudí, we need to talk about the unfinished Basilica of Sagrada Familia. Sagrada Familia is not the Cathedral of Barcelona, but it's second rank in the hierarchy of the Catholic Church. It's a basilica. And we started it in 1882. And we were planning to finish it in 2026 for the 100th anniversary of the death of the architect. But you know, many things have changed in this year in the world. So we don't know when we are gonna finish it yet. And Sagrada Familia, it goes beyond words. It's one of the only buildings that without being finished yet, it has been declared World Heritage. Outside, you will see an eclectic styles depicting different parts of the Bible, important parts of the Bible. And if you ever have the chance to go inside, I've seen people just crying going inside, because this architect Gaudí planned like a natural temple inspired in a forest. He would think of the choir when singing as the drops raining inside the forest. And whereas outside we are told about the history of Jesus and important parts of the Bible, inside everything is there, pretty neutral and natural, so that it is a universal temple, so that people can maybe have a glimpse of God. Sagrada Familia and this Gaudí's architecture is something everyone will never regret to see once in a lifetime. And connected with architecture, we have another beautiful venue that I would like to tell you about, where we have orchestras and bands playing, which is this theater nearby Barcelona with an eclectic style that tells us about the importance of Barcelona and the area of Catalonia in the late 19th century too. So medieval churches and Gaudí's architecture and Art Nouveau, that's what Barcelona has to offer to us. And now we're gonna keep traveling, and we're gonna jump on a bus, and we're going to cross the Iberian Peninsula, 600 kilometers. I think we like to think in kilometers, but that would be, I don't know how many miles, but I think it's like the same distance as between New York and Boston, I would say. And we would get to the city of Madrid, the capital of Spain. And Madrid is a completely different city. In Madrid, the museums are extremely important, like Museo del Prado. And what makes Madrid such an interesting city for groups visiting them is its lifestyle and the tapas. So let's have a look. Madrid, tapas and world-class museums all at once. You will see it's a really interesting combination for a city with 4.5 million people living there. We can already see Madrid is a much modern city. It's got a financial district. It has very high buildings, skyscrapers, and it's more modern than most of the Spanish capitals, because it only became the capital of Spain because a king wanted it. He wanted to do his own things in the late 15th century. Sorry. So we won't find such an old architecture, but yet a beautiful one that reminds us that Madrid is a city that you could maybe compare somehow with Vienna in Austria or with London. This is its main street, its main road called Gran Via, Broadway, and where you can find lots of places, lots of venues, theaters where musicals take place. Madrid is a city which is very vibrant and very dynamic, and it is probably because it's got an impressive amount of public workers who drop their pencils at 5 p.m. And it's quite early for a Spaniard to stop working at 5 p.m. People in the offices work until 7 and 8 p.m. So what happens is that they just go to all the terraces and the bars to have beers and to have tapas. The main square in Madrid is called the Gate of the Sun. It is a very, very lively square in the old town of Madrid. It's displayed as a semicircle where the streets represent the rays of the sun, like half a sun. And then you can walk in the streets, or you can go up to terraces like this. This is a hotel in Plaza España, and this is my friend Maripaz, who just sent me this picture 3 weeks ago. And this is the place where Madrileans like to go for some tapas and enjoy the breathtaking views of a city that never ends. This is really, really Madrid. Once or before or after the tapas, you should visit in Madrid Museo del Prado. And why is Museo del Prado so important? This is a painting by an Italian artist called Tintoretto. It is it's a world-class museum that became important too because Madrid is the home of the Spanish monarchy. And because of Spain being such an important empire after Columbus went to America in 1492, we can see the pride of the old Spanish Empire and the incredible collection of arts. Inside the Prado Museum, you will see sometimes it's packed, it's full of people. So it's a really, really popular museum. And you will see canvases like the 3rd of May by Goya of 1808 by Goya, a very important Spanish painter. Las Meninas by Velázquez. Velázquez was a very important a Spanish genius of the 17th century, and this was his masterpiece. And just around the corner, we can have a look in Madrid at a canvas that used to be for a long time in MoMA in New York until democracy made it back to Spain. And it's Guernica, Picasso's painting about a bombarding, inspired in a bombardment in the Spanish Civil War, painted in 1937. This is Madrid, but not just this. Once you're done with all of this incredible art, or before you go back once again, because there's so much to see, you can just go around the corner and have really nice tapas like this one. This is chocolate con churros. Have you tried chocolate con churros in your time in Spain, John?
I have not, but it looks
you have
delicious.
It looks really delicious. As far as I know, the melted chocolate in America is usually not so thick. So you need to imagine this is really, really thick melted chocolate. You could eat it with a spoon, or you could use these donuts full of sugar that you just dip inside, and you can take them in Madrid 24/7. That's the thing. And as you can see here, it's the best thing we have against hangover. One of the things that people don't really know is that in Spain, in normal times, you should never go to a club before, I would say, 1:30 or 2 a.m. in the morning. Before, it's dead. There's no one there because we like to have dinner late, then we have some drinks, and we go for a walk. And then at 2 a.m., we get to the club. And by the time it's 6, 7, we are ready to have some of these tasty churros that help us to prevent hangover. This is something you should try in Madrid. And there's another proposal. Well, once in Madrid, don't be surprised if you see this. This is another incredible delicacy that people in Madrid love. It's a calamari sandwich. It's the most popular thing in town, but I don't know yet why. Along with this, you will find sangria, you will have jamon, ham, similar to Italian prosciutto, but probably better, and a lot of tapas that show us too that in Spain people like to, how would I say it? I would say this is really, people don't live to work, they work to live. And in Madrid, especially in such a big city, people know how to enjoy life. That's something really, really, really Spanish too. The venues in Madrid. We have the Auditorio Nacional de Madrid, which was built in the 1980s. And it's got the Symphonic Hall has got a revert time of 2 seconds and some 2,300 seats. It's one of the places we like to visit with groups, with orchestras and bands. And sometimes we play there too. This is a modern auditory, which has been compared with venues with important concert halls in Amsterdam and St. Petersburg, in the Netherlands and Russia, by musicians who have played there. So it's really the best place for an orchestra to play in Madrid. And then we have a church from the 18th century, La Basílica Pontificia de San Miguel, St. Michael's Basilica, which is a great place for choirs. In this case, you can see it's not as old as St. Mary of the Pine Tree in Barcelona. It's a bit more modern, from the 18th century. And in this case, instead of Gothic, we have a Baroque atmosphere with paintings, with columns. And it is to a place that you locals like to enjoy music.
One thing I'll just add, Javier, that often groups will base themselves for 2 or 3 nights in Madrid on a tour. And one of the great things about that, in addition to what's in Madrid and the beautiful venues there, there are also some nearby medieval cities that are fantastic to visit and offer some performing opportunities as well, like Toledo and Avila and Segovia. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about those too.
That's totally right. And it's incredible because it only takes you 1 hour, 15 minutes to drive to Segovia, to drive to Toledo, a bit more to Salamanca. Toledo, for example, used to be the old Spanish capital, Castilian capital. It's got an incredible hilly old town with old synagogues, and a venue we like to use has got the masterpiece of an important painter called El Greco. It's just incredible. It's Santo Tomé's church. And then we have, as you were mentioning, John, we have Segovia. This is the masterpiece of Segovia. It's a Roman aqueduct that was built by Romans. They really knew how to build infrastructures that would resist time, and it's still used nowadays to bring water into the city of Segovia. And the Segovians, the people from Segovia, they call this their grandfather. The Roman aqueduct is their grandfather, and their grandma is a church that is nowadays a museum that was started to be built in the 6th century after Christ, where we like to take bands and orchestras. San Juan de los Caballeros Church, a Romanesque church transformed into a museum nowadays with an interesting, very, very interesting atmosphere. As you were saying, John, it's not just Madrid, it's everywhere around Madrid. You will find, as Madrid was more modern, you will find the old medieval cities all around, smaller, but full of character and full of really interesting buildings and heritage. So Segovia, Madrid, Toledo, this is what the center of Spain has to offer us. That's where we have I would say, the core of Spanish identity, the home of the Spanish monarchy. And last but not least, we're gonna travel south to the city of Sevilla, Seville. And Seville is one of the best places where you can experience flamenco music, which is the 5th thing I love about Spain I would like to share with you today. If we go back in time, again, 500 years ago, during the years America was being colonized, we need to think Madrid would be some sort of, we could compare it with the city of Washington, public workers at that time, the king and the people working there, and it only with time it became important. So nowadays it's huge and it's important. But Seville at that time used to be the place, the city, where all the ships from the colonies, full of gold and silver and tomatoes and everything, would go back, because Seville is a harbor city on a river. We are gonna see it in a second. And once you start strolling around Seville, you see, as we say in Spain, Sevilla tiene un color especial. Seville has a special color and it's got a special sound. Flamenco and Islamic heritage is running through the veins of people, and you can see it, for example, in one of its majestic squares, Plaza de España. This is Plaza de España. This is Spain Square, built in the 20th century. And I just wanted to play that nice video in this square, which is just beautiful. It's gorgeous. Because flamenco tells us about the incredible mix of cultures that took shape in the south of Spain. In the south of Spain, in cities like Sevilla, the Arabs were there for 500 years. In other places like Granada, they were there until 1492. Since 711, that is 700 years. And the chant to prayer, if you know this, Allahu Akbar, that was sung from the minarets of the mosques, connected with the gypsies who were going down with the Christians in the Reconquest, just shaped this incredible dancing and tapping and this singing that is just it's so worth saying on the streets or in venues too. This is where you experience them in southern Spain, in Seville. As I was telling you, Seville is a harbor city. There's nothing more beautiful than walking next to the Guadalquivir River, which is an Arabic name to say the big river. That's its name. That's what it means, the etymology. And this gold tower is in Seville, but it's typically Moroccan, I could say. I was living in Morocco for some time. So this is the architecture that the Arabs left behind. This would be the place where tolls would be collected 500 years ago. There would be a chain, and the ships who wanted to make it further up into the peninsula on the river, they would need to pay taxes at this tower that was started to build in the 1300s. It's one of its most iconic sites. There's nothing more beautiful than walking along the river and enjoying one of the sunsets of the city. Seville has usually an orange tree smell too, especially at this time of the year in spring. And then we have important buildings from other times, like in the 18th century. This is the Royal Tobacco Factory. For a cigarette factory, it's quite fancy, I would say. And it was such a beautiful factory, and it was royal, so Seville is too connected with the Spanish monarchy, that it was the inspiration for a very, very, very interesting opera, Carmen by Bizet, the French composer. So Carmen was a lady working with cigarettes, producing cigarettes in this factory. So this is part of the history of opera too. Many different musical styles we will see in Seville, many different styles in architecture. And then we have Sevilla's highlight, the Cathedral of Seville, where Islamic heritage and flamenco come together. This is the bell tower of Seville. It's the symbol of the city. It's called La Giralda. And it is a twin tower of a tower there is in Marrakesh, in Morocco, called Koutoubia, a twin tower of another tower there is in Rabat, in the capital of Morocco, which is called Tur Hassan. And now it's a bell tower. But if you ever visit it, you will see this special one because it used to be the minaret of the mosque. Seville's cathedral is a medieval church again, but it is special for many reasons. First, because it was built at the place where the mosque used to be. So the church, the bell tower was first a minaret, and we have conserved the ramp that the Muslims on a donkey would go up, the imam or the muezzin, we call them, would go up 5 times a day to tell everyone that to sing that it was prayer time. And from there you have incredible views. It is the 3rd largest church in the world and the largest Gothic temple on earth. You can see the picture doesn't take in the whole structure, and inside it just looks marvelous. This is the area of the choir. And the Cathedral of Seville too is one of the most exceptional venues we like to take groups to, choirs especially. Again, it's got a long reverb, and depending usually on the amount of tissues they have, the acoustics will change. But it is a grandiose church with an incredible reverb, and it was already at the time it was transformed into a church. It was considered by some historians one of the most incredible churches to sing at or to play an organ. So the Cathedral of Seville, which is World Heritage of the UNESCO, it is an incredible place for a site for a memorable experience singing there too, and that's why we like to go there too. And if you ever sing there, if you as a choir you sing there, you will be singing to what is supposed to be the tomb of Christopher Columbus, just one of them. He's been claimed in many other places too. So Barcelona, Madrid, and Seville offer us these venues we have been talking about. This medieval church of Barcelona, St. Mary of the Pine Tree from the 14th century, a theater from the 19th century that conveys us gives us an insight into the impressive 19th and 20th century in Barcelona. In central Spain, the Church of San Miguel, the National Auditorium, and the Church of St. John of the Knights, San Juan de los Caballeros in Segovia, and then the Cathedral of Seville. These are just some of the venues that you could enjoy during your time in Spain. And these medieval churches, Gaudi, Art Nouveau, the arts of El Museo del Prado, tapas, and the lifestyle, this passion John you were talking about at the beginning, some minutes ago, and flamenco music are at least 5 reasons why Spain is such I would say such an exceptional country to visit. And one of the things that makes it exceptional is that once you cross from Barcelona to Madrid, everything changes. And once you go from Madrid to Seville, everything changes again. The incredible diversity gives a more rich experience to all of the groups, orchestras, bands, ensembles visiting in Spain. And that's where we would love to welcome you again anytime soon.
So there are obviously so many things we could talk about Spain. And just for any wind ensemble directors that might be out there, we didn't get a chance to mention it, but the area around Valencia, which you can see on the map on the coast there, south of Barcelona, there's a really strong wind band tradition in that region. And there's a a very large international band festival that takes place there every summer. So if there are any wind ensemble groups out there looking to go to Spain, that would be another wonderful place to visit, an opportunity to perform. And maybe just while we have a second here, Javier, we've chatted about this, but
Sure.
are there a couple of places, outside of these three cities that if a group has the opportunity, you would also recommend that they visit?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Next to Barcelona, we have a city called Girona too. Girona, with an incredible old town that you could only compare probably with Toledo next to Madrid, that has been preserved as if time hadn't passed by in the last 6 centuries. Girona is an incredible smaller city, 1 hour away from Barcelona. In the area, we have as well the Dali Museum, if you're interested in arts. That man was crazy too. And near Madrid, we have Toledo, Salamanca, for sure, very important because of its university. We have some venues there, Segovia for sure. And one of the areas that in southern Spain, Sevilla, but Granada is just like a dream, with this fortress built by the Arabs called the Alhambra, the red one. It's just incredible. And what many people don't know is that in Spain, it does rain too. It rains quite a lot, actually, but especially in the north of Spain. If you think Barcelona is in northern Spain, we don't consider ourselves to be northern Spaniards because we say we are Mediterranean. And northern Spain would be around the place where you see Bilbao, above of Madrid. In that area, we have the Basque country with its own specific culture. They still speak a language which is supposed to be the oldest living language in Europe. Nobody really knows where it comes from. It's incredibly mysterious, and it's lush, it's green, it's full of hills. It's just impressive. And you could see as well Santiago de Compostela, which is the end of this pilgrimage path called El Camino. So Spain has a lot to offer, and all these cities will give you a broader insight into this diversity of Spain that makes it so special.
Awesome. So we want to get to some questions. If you have a question, again, please feel free to enter it in the Q&A box, and we'll be happy to answer it. So Javier, we do have a question. Elizabeth wants to know, what exactly are tapas and why are they called tapas?
Oh, that's a because I don't see all the screens now, but I think you see me, right? Tapas. A tapa is a cover. So when we cover ourselves with in the bed with the blankets, we cover ourselves, but it's a cover. So legend goes that there was a king who would like, king of Spain, of Castile, who would like to get soups, and on top of the soup, so that it wouldn't cold, he would just get a little plate, a little dish that would cover it, some food on it. Can you? I hope I'm still there. So that would be a tapa. So it's a small portion of food, of any food, and it can be ham. It's a small portion, and the origin is this: the king would get on a soup a little dish, and with some food, and that became the beginning of a tradition. We have tapas in most of Spain, but make sure you go to the good places for tapas. In Barcelona, you pay for everything, for the beer and for the tapa. In Madrid or in Sevilla, most of the times you will be getting some tapas for free. And in northern Spain, we have pinchos, which is like the way to have tapas. It is a stick, and then you get some bread with cheese, bread with many different things. That's the way to have tapas. It is a really nice way to enjoy food and to share with friends and family.
Great. I know a lot of time when groups are planning for a tour, the directors spend a lot of effort trying to figure out what to perform. So if an American group is coming to Spain, do you think they should try to include some Spanish music in their repertoire, or what kind of music would a Spanish audience want to hear?
Okay, wow, that's a really interesting question. I mean, if you go to Barcelona, I think as a group. You could just play anything you want. Barcelona is an open-minded city. It's a harbor city. I see regularly people dancing country music on the beach on Saturdays and Sundays. So they would be in Barcelona. You would find the audience is open to anything basically. But in Madrid, they would love you to play typical Spanish music. If talking once again about the king and the queen and the princesses, not that I like them, but we still have them in Spain. The palace, their home, their residence, the palace where they live is called La Zarzuela, and La Zarzuela it is a kind of opera song, if I can say it like this. So Madrid is much more into, they would love Spanish music, but if you have a classical repertoire in Madrid, it would be highly appreciated. And then in Seville, it's more traditional. So they are not so open to other things. But if you want to try with some religious music, that would probably connect with the soul of people from Seville, where religion and tradition are completely linked. I don't know if they would be so used to soul music or other styles like jazz, but you could probably give them a chance. Valencia, for example, it's just like Barcelona, it's more open, and Salamanca next to Madrid would be more conservative, more classical. That's what I would say.
Great. We have another question from Diane and Tom Lin. Thank you again for joining us today. Diane was asking about an itinerary for a group that wants to include Portugal and Spain. I know oftentimes we'll have a group start in Madrid and then head down south, Andalusia to Seville, Granada, and then over to Lisbon. I don't know if you have any other, anything else you would think would make for a good trip for a group that wants to do Portugal and Spain combined.
Yeah, definitely. Portugal is such an interesting country. It's one of the oldest countries in Europe. And many people love to visit Lisbon, which is a southern city, and it's the capital. Lisbon would be like the Seville, because it's in the south of Spain, in Portugal, so to say, of Portugal, and it became the capital. It's gorgeous. It's southern. It's full of light. But if you ever have the chance, you could combine Lisbon too with the city above, the second largest city, which is called Oporto. Oporto, which means the harbor. It is the origin of the country. You can see the name Portugal, so it comes from Porto, Portugal. And it is a city that it seems to be stuck in the 19th century, full of clouds, and it's very nostalgic. And it is probably the best definition of what it is a city a city which is like a fado. Fado is this nostalgic music of the Portuguese sailors. Oporto is a city where anyone, I mean, it's to fall in love with, but it's a bit nostalgic. Oporto, by the way, was to the place where J.K. Rowling started to write Harry Potter at a time of her life when she was pretty in crisis. So definitely Lisbon would be a great place, and Oporto too. That would be really nice to combine with a Spanish trip. We are part of the same reality, which is the Iberian Peninsula. So Portugal gives us one more insight into the diversity of this peninsula, which is at one of the ends of Europe, very close to Africa and open to the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean.
Well, this has been really wonderful. Hopefully everybody is now ready to hop on a plane and head to Spain and Portugal. I would love to do that. I think we're all ready to do that. I just want to mention out there for groups that are considering doing a tour in 2022, right now we do have a worry-free guarantee that we have in place. If someone registers by July 1st for a 2022 trip, they can cancel for any reason all the way up until October 1st and get a full refund. So we're hoping that'll encourage folks to go ahead and plan a trip knowing they're at no financial risk up until October 1st. I also want to mention that we are giving away $5,000 travel scholarships this spring. We had our first drawing on April 1st, And our very first winner was from an adult choir that we work with out in Oregon, Trudy McKinnell. And we're going to have our next drawing on May 1st. So anybody who's registered for a 2022 trip is eligible to win. So that's another great thing that we're doing. So once again, I want to thank you, Javier, again for joining us. I'd say staying up late, but this isn't late in Spain. I know that. So
not that late. No,
it's not.
It's just the beginning of the night.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I hope everyone enjoyed our little visit to Spain, and we all look forward to seeing these places in person again very soon. Please stay tuned for our next Encore live event, which will be from Budapest, coming up on Thursday, April 29th. So until next time, muchas gracias for all of us at Encore Tours, and esperamos veros pronto por España. Adiós.
Adiós.